Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the drone delivery session. We all know that we live in a world with huge disruptions that are coming. So some say that, today we're seeing the fastest technological innovation we've ever seen in history, but it's also going to be the slowest day for the rest of our lives because we just simply cannot keep up with the speed. But when we think about all the new technologies now, some technologies are going to be very disruptive in the future, but some are actually rolling out in the market already, changing industries and changing people's lives. So drones are one of those. So we're seeing drones flying overhead, delivering from blood supplies in Rwanda to consumer goods in China. So first, I want to welcome Will Hetzler, the co-founder of Zipline. I think a lot of people might have heard of Zipline in this group, to learn about how drones are transforming logistics and also impacting people's lives. So please join me in welcoming Will.
Thank you. How many of you are parents? I'd like to begin with a story that should resonate with many parents. It's a story about a mother who has just gone into labor. She gives birth at her local hospital, but she quickly experiences complications and begins to bleed heavily. The medical team that's caring for the mother works to stabilize her. But I'm sorry, the clicker isn't, okay. The medical team that's caring for the mother works to stabilize her, but they soon realize that they will need more blood than their hospital blood bank has in stock. At that moment, this mother's life would be at risk in any health system in the world. She's experiencing severe postpartum hemorrhage, which is most simply defined as excessive bleeding following childbirth. This obstetric emergency is one of the leading causes of death for health systems around the world in both high and low-income countries, accounting for over 25% of all maternal deaths. As many as 7 million women suffer from postpartum hemorrhage each year, and this obstetric emergency often requires massive transfusion of more than the total volume of blood in a woman's body to help stabilize a patient. Fortunately for the mother in this case, she lives in Rwanda, where the hospital immediately placed an order for delivery of blood with Zipline by drone. She fully recovered, and she's now raising a healthy son. This is a video of the first delivery of blood that Zipline made to a hospital in Rwanda. Zipline is the automated logistics company that I co-founded. And we use drones to make life-saving deliveries on demand, serving millions of people around the world. This may sound like science fiction to many of you, as it does to the women in the foreground of this video. But drone delivery has become commonplace in many of the countries where Zipline works. So why deliver blood by drone? The short answer is this was the government of Rwanda's vision. I first traveled to Rwanda in 2015, searching for a launch partner for the technology that we were developing. When I arrived, I was interested in delivering a whole range of medicines and vaccines by drone. However, when I met with the Minister of Health, Dr. Agnes Binagwaho, she was adamant that while many products would benefit, drone delivery of blood would be most impactful. The government of Rwanda unsurprisingly understood the needs of their health system better than my team and I ever could. And their guidance was essential to the early success of our work. So in partnership with Dr. Binagwaho and her team, we worked to design the world's first national-scale drone delivery system in Rwanda. We established Zipline's first distribution center in late 2016 in the southwest of the country. From this location, we can serve a radius of about 80 kilometers, covering an area of over 20,000 square kilometers. That area includes the first 21 hospitals that the Rwanda Ministry of Health contracted Zipline to serve. After establishing our partnership with government, I lived in Rwanda for almost 3 years, working to support the launch and growth of our operations. During that time, I came to understand what gave Dr. Binagwaho the conviction that we should start by delivering blood. Every day, having timely access to blood of the right type and insufficient quantities is literally a matter of life and death for every health system in the world. But blood products are also challenging to manage. There are many types, they have short shelf lives, and it's difficult to accurately forecast demand for each blood type before patients need transfusion. This is a complex problem. Traditionally, health supply chains struggle balancing the trade-off between increasing access and reducing waste. This trade-off is one that hospitals have encountered every day for centuries. Now, if you want to maximize access, you stock lots of products in large quantities at every health facility so that patients always have the medicine they need. But a consequence of this is that you end up throwing out a lot of expired inventory, which can be unaffordable for most health systems. If you want to minimize waste, you stock fewer products and less of each product at health facilities. But then health workers sometimes don't have the product they need to treat a patient. Just-in-time delivery by drone allows us to improve the efficiency and responsiveness of health supply chains. The Rwandan health system now stores blood regionally at Zipline's distribution centers and uses drones to make deliveries on demand to hospitals in an average of less than 30 minutes from the time they place an order. This is a video that can give you a sense of the process for just such a delivery. Just-in-time delivery by drone has allowed Rwanda to achieve something that was previously unheard of. The health system has simultaneously eliminated stockouts and waste for a vital medical product group. Because hospitals know that they can rely on quickly receiving a delivery whenever needed, they hold less blood in stock. However, this does not mean that demand for blood products has gone down. Better access has led to a significant increase in the use of blood. Use of common products has increased by around 10%, while use of rare blood products that were previously less available has increased by over 175%. This leads to faster turnover in inventory. And over the past 2 years, virtually 0 units of blood have expired at any of the hospitals that Zipline serves. We have completed over 16,000 deliveries of medical products. Over 4,000 of those deliveries were for emergencies. And of those 4,000 deliveries, behind every one is a patient like the mother in our story. Rwanda is rapidly expanding drone delivery. The health system launched a project earlier this year to put almost every health facility in the country within range. And they've expanded the list of products available for delivery by drone to include all essential medicines, vaccines, and blood. The government of Ghana similarly recognized the value that drones could bring to their health system and launched a partnership to establish the world's largest drone delivery network, serving over 2,000 health facilities. Soon, almost every medical professional in both Ghana and Rwanda will be able to receive any product they need to treat a patient within 30 to 45 minutes, no matter where they're located. We plan to do for the entire health supply chain what we've already done for blood. So to put in perspective the importance of this, let's consider what's happening at a global scale. Over 1 billion people lack reliable access to essential medical products, which is closely correlated with outcomes in key areas like child health. Over 3 million children die each year from conditions that could be prevented or treated with access to essential medical products. Many people might assume that this challenge around access might be limited to low-income countries in places like Africa. However, this is a global problem. I come from a medical family. My father's a doctor and my mother's a nurse. My parents were some of the only medical professionals practicing in their specialty in the rural part of the United States where I was born. Many communities in the US struggle with limited access to healthcare, and the disparity in access between urban and rural areas is a common challenge for countries around the world. Most of the people in this room probably live in cities. So consider, how would your experience of healthcare be different if you lived in a rural part of your country? Just last summer, newspapers in the US were running headlines about drug shortages and stockouts. A recent survey by the American College of Emergency Physicians found that over 90% of emergency doctors in the US said that they lacked access to some vital medicines. And over 40% said that that lack of access had negatively impacted the health of their patients. I'd like to share another patient story with you. This one is about a 47-year-old man who was recently diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension. Between his job and a child in school, both he and his wife lead busy lives. He could order his medication by mail, but it's so valuable that he worries what would happen if he wasn't at home to receive delivery. And at best, parcel carriers' delivery windows are several hours long, which means he would need to take time off work if he was going to receive the delivery at home. So instead, he spends hours driving every month to a pharmacy to pick up the specialty medication that he needs to manage his health. Like many patients with chronic diseases, this man is frustrated. There isn't enough time to both properly manage his health while also working and spending time with family. Sometimes he doesn't refill his prescriptions on time, and he was recently hospitalized as a result of an incident that was related to a gap in treatment. Everyone, even those living in rural areas, should have instant access to any medical product they need. Drone delivery can provide patients like the man in our story with that access. We can deliver medications directly to patients' homes, either on demand or scheduled for the exact time that's convenient for them. At best, that level of access exists in only a few major cities today. And that lack of access leads to all kinds of hidden costs, and in too many cases, tragic human stories. We can do better. Logistics should no longer be a barrier to accessing healthcare. For the vast majority of communities, if a health facility lacks a product to treat a patient, a drone could affordably deliver that product in time to provide the best available standard of care. I envision a future where doctors will never lack access to essential medical products, and individuals will never struggle to manage their health while also leading full lives. This future is within reach, and our team is working tirelessly to achieve it. But it's too big a vision for one company to realize alone. We need help from the people in this room. I hope that you will cast aside old ways of thinking about these challenges and join me to radically reimagine how drone delivery can help enable equitable access to healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Will, for that very powerful, inspiring sharing. I think everyone is born wanting to do good, but I think sometimes people get caught between making money versus doing good. But your company is able to combine both. Could you talk to us about it? How were you able to combine both, and what inspired you to start thinking about this idea and start it in Rwanda?
So first, we're a mission-driven company, and I think everything we do comes from that mission. So what we believe is that the best way to serve our mission is to ensure the financial sustainability of our service. And for that reason, we have always been looking for opportunities to partner with health systems to both serve the mission of improving access to healthcare while also ensuring that we can cover our costs.
Okay, so now I'm going to invite some other panelists also come on stage to join us and have a conversation. So may I please, Will, please sit. And may I please invite Razat Gaurav, so CEO of LLamasoft, which helps companies to make supply chain decisions. And he's a trusted expert on supply chain planning and execution. And also Zhang, the founder and CEO of Antwork, and one of the leading drone delivery companies in China. So please. So when we think about drones, it's a big market, it's a big potential market. So people are talking about $100 billion market in the making. So when you think about when you help companies to think about entering the drone space and what you're doing, how do you think about what industries to go into, sort of like B2B versus B2C, long distance versus short distance, rural versus urban? How do you think about that?
Okay. I think drone is a big industry, but Zhang is a machine that can fly. That's another big company called Zhang. Maybe everybody know that.
DJI.
Yeah, DJI. And he used the camera, used the drone to carry the camera. And I think this is a camera can fly. Another part is the drone. I think it's an aircraft. Aircraft means in the more than 100 years, it must either one mission is transportation. So I think our mission is the same as Zipline, to do the transportation use the drone. I think this is a big industry, but nowadays it is very difficult. As we can see that Zipline, to deploy this system, it's very complex work. Also, we are doing Antwork, are doing the similar business. We develop a system in an urban area. It's also very complex. And we also want to provide urgent delivery in a city. Everyone knows that there's a big industry for the commercial airline. The network is very high density nowadays, all worldwide. But in a city, there's no airline can provide you can buy a ticket to deliver something fast. I think it's a high potential market. So Antwork are focused on this. We developed the other kind of system to do that. Yeah.
You know, when we work with companies around the world, we like to think of three segments of categories. What is the geography? And that deals with density, access, rural versus urban, etc. The second is around product. So what are the product characteristics? And you know, Will gave a fantastic presentation talking about blood, for example. It lends itself very well to where drone as a means of transportation and distribution can be very impactful. You're dealing with uncertain, unpredictable demand, very, very highly sensitive demand, which needs to be serviced. You know, sometimes it could be, you know, helping save lives at times. So it's very time sensitive. Also, you're dealing with perishable, sometimes inventory. So you want to be able to, and you may not have access in many parts of the world to refrigeration, and that infrastructure may lack. So product characteristics are the second thing. And then the third aspect are just, there are all kinds of different grades of drones, and probably Will knows a lot more about that than I do, but various equipment types that can handle different sort of payloads, right? So between those three segments of the geography, the region you're talking about, the product characteristics, and the type of equipment, the drone equipment you're looking at, you can really decide which products really fit in what segments of the market.
I think, I agree with everything that you said. And one of the things that's common to all drones today is that since this is a relatively new technology, drones are quite expensive. And you need products that have a relatively high value, both societal value as well as financial value, to justify the higher cost of drone delivery. And for us, that's why we chose to begin with medical products, as we felt that that was the most obvious place that had strong social value as well as a relatively high value to weight ratio of the actual product itself.
So how expensive is it compared to conventional road delivery, and what's the timeline for lowering the cost for wider adoption?
Like everything, it depends on the context you're talking about. Like there are many contexts where drone delivery, even comparing only transportation cost, is cheaper than ground transport today, especially for more rural or hard to reach settings. In urban areas, I think it's more a question of the time sensitivity of the delivery. So if you have things that are very urgent, drones are often one of the better ways to deliver in that setting. But in the long run, the way that Zipline thinks about this is we're not just selling a transportation service. We're selling a service that strengthens supply chains in general. And as a result, we're not only comparing the cost to deliver that service to the cost of transport by truck or motorbike, but instead we're comparing it to the holistic supply chain cost. Because having a multimodal supply chain where you have both drones and ground vehicles allows you to save it in areas like waste and working capital cost and all of these things that aren't related to your direct transport cost.
What about in China? Because China, I mean, road transportation is very cheap. So how do you justify it?
Yes, it's a very serious business model in China to deliver used drone. Because the human labor is cheap. Everybody maybe in Dalian and other cities, you can call the takeout very cheap, $1 US, even less. So why we use drone in the urban area? I think we not do the deliver very short distance. We deliver a little far, long distance, more than 10 kilometers. And it must be urgent. Some people, if you want some medicine, some business stuff, maybe use this service. And at that scenario, we can imagine that there's many airports, like similar as the big airports, like airports in some campus, and we have the airlines, very high density. And then we can make the cost lower and lower, like the net effect. Similar as a commercial airline, the ticket is cheaper and cheaper because many people use that. The network have the high density. I think this is our way. First, use the same as the Zipline. We deliver the medical things. And then we deliver long distance, some instant delivery.
And Razat, how do you think about redesign the supply chain to make the most value out of this?
Yeah, let me go back to something that Will referenced and just add a little bit more color and context to it. It's sometimes misleading to just look at the transport costs and compare across various modes, over the road, motorbike in certain areas, or truck deliveries, etc. What we recommend to companies is to look at the total landed cost. Okay, the total landed cost needs to account for your inventory costs. Where are you carrying your inventories, right? Where are your storage facilities? So all the different fixed and variable costs that make up that supply chain. Right? That's what Will was referring to, is when you look at that total landed cost, sometimes you'll find very counterintuitive results where drones can be very much more economically attractive compared to other modes. But transportation is just one element of a total landed cost. So just to keep that in mind.
And I guess it's not just about cost. Sometimes there's no better alternatives for delivering, emergency, for example, medical products.
Right.
So, I mean, it makes sense, but I think it's very hard to roll it out in the very beginning. So how do you think about, what role does the company play? What role does the government agency that are drawing out new regulations play? What role does local government play? What do different parties need to do to really cooperate to roll out this in cities?
So I think just to start with a few thoughts. This is a regulated industry. I mean, both healthcare and aviation are regulated industries. So without an accommodating regulatory environment, none of this is possible. And Zipline has spent a lot of time working with the governments in the countries where we work to develop a set of regulations that both ensure safety for patients in the airspace while also enabling this new mode of transport. So I think everything has to start with the government partnership. And then we also partner with all kinds of stakeholders in the health system because those are the stakeholders that best understand where the need is, that can most drive impact through the existing operations that they already have. And we work very closely to custom design solutions for the context of a particular partner.
I think at the end of the day, we're in early stages of adoption, right? I think there's some real success stories in the healthcare world that we can all look at and learn from and deploy all over the world. On the consumer goods side, what we find is, again, there are pilots and experiments taking place, but again, in fairly early stages. But they do require collaboration with the government agencies. One of the things that we're really pushing for is collection of data. Because to really be able to set up these networks efficiently, you need data. And you don't have much data because these are just being done for the first time, right? In many parts of the world. So we're just starting out. So as we get more data, we get more case points. I think we'll have better grounding on how to convince the various stakeholders. But I think for certain products, for certain regions, and for certain markets, this is an exciting way of providing access, reducing waste, and really servicing patients, consumers, in a way that we just couldn't imagine in the past.
Yes, I add some overview, and I also agree that the data is very important for the safety issue. Maybe the manufacturer, the operator, prove that your operation is safety, and also the regulator will see the data. It's good for the people. You can fly over the people. And maybe in China, maybe our company, there's one big issue is that where we can start to get the data. That's a big issue. At first, we go to the rural area in China. That's fortunately that China government is make it this sandbox, and we can try to test our drone in the rural area from the town to the village. And we test 2 years with China Post. There's many villages have not good access on the road, even in the bad weather. So we can use the drone to deliver something rare. We can deliver some medicine based on depend on the China Post. If the village people want something, they can deliver. That is the first stage that we can operate. And maybe there's difficult to transfer from the rural area to urban area. But I'm also fortunately that we are in Hangzhou, a city near Shanghai, that the government also allowed us to test in the city. At first, we delivered the Starbucks coffee for many people. Nowadays, it's more than 10,000 people have the experience that gets the coffee from the drone. Yes, that's opened the minds that the government think it can do that in the urban area. That's a good start, but I think maybe other governments also can encourage the industry private company to try this new technology. And maybe the second is money. We don't have any fund from the government. We are a private startup. It's very hard to build the infrastructure of a city because the transportation nowadays is 2D. It's on the ground. How can it be the 3D? It's hard work. We need to build the airport, the terminal, also the drone. There's many things. And there's another important issue is safety for the aerospace management. If the initiative is not the government, private company can't give the whole consideration of the future, the aerospace management. And we cannot decide the roles. And many private companies need to negotiate. But I think maybe the regular, like the CAC in China and also the local government can together and make the private company to join together to to discuss on that table to make the safety regulation for the aerospace that may make future very efficient in 3D transportation.
So that's very interesting when we think about the speed of adoption of new technologies. I mean, in China, I guess the advantage is that it's not the government, invest in your company or subsidize your company, but the thing is they create a very friendly environment for you to roll this out and to test it, to gather data, and that helps you to improve your algorithm and ultimately might give you a lead in technological, innovation. So how do you compare sort of the speed of adoption, in China versus like globally across the globe? Developing countries versus, now I know you're trying to launch it in the US. Mm-hmm. So how do you think about that and, sort of what gives you an edge in the future?
So I think obviously this technology has not started in, developed regions that historically have been the birthplace of a lot of these advanced technologies. So it didn't start in the US, it didn't start in Europe, it didn't start in Japan. The first places where these technologies are deployed are in countries like China, parts of sub-Saharan Africa, where I think the environment to promote that innovation has been much more accommodative. And there are some good reasons for that. So one is that the airspace is much less complex in a lot of these countries. So regulators can maintain the same level of safety while also allowing these new technologies into the airspace in a way that the FAA and the US just couldn't do. So as the technologies have started to mature, now you're seeing Europe and the US come back and create regulatory pathways for operation. And as Carol mentioned, our company is actually launching in the US later this year, where we've been working with the FAA over a very long time now to get certification to do that. So I think it's, the speed of adoption in some cases necessarily is different because of differences in the country's contexts. But I also think that it will actually be much faster than many other transportation technologies have been adopted in history. And one of the reasons for that is that because of the benefits of automation, it's much less costly and takes much less time to set up and scale these technologies.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to need, right? And ultimately, you look at countries around the world where there is a lack of infrastructure. Your time to market or your ability to scale a drone-enabled delivery network can be a lot faster, a lot cheaper than laying out all the physical infrastructure, right? So, so I think it's need, it's the practicality, and then finally, I think it's a government that's willing to partner and be willing to experiment, do some pilots, and do something new, right? And that varies based on political stance in different countries.
And also, I guess one is need, and one is the appetite for change. I guess in developing countries, like for example in China, I'm from China, for the past 40 years, all you're used to is change. So people are much more willing to try new things. So I think that would be sort of maybe another factor as well. So when we think about the future, right, looking in the future, do you think drones will largely replace humans in logistics? What's sort of like the future of this?
Okay, I think in the future, similar as the global transportation, there's on the ground, there's on the water, and also in the air. There's in the air is not more than 1%, but it transfer 1/3 good value. It's I think maybe similar in not only in the city, also in the rural area. Use the drone to deliver not all the things instead of the human labor, also not instead of the car on the ground, just deliver some emergencies, just deliver some high value things. That is enough for the air, for the transportation in the air, I think.
Just to add a few things onto that, I think the transportation is an enabling industry. It doesn't exist on its own, but instead is moving goods for other businesses and other industries. And I think I wouldn't say that people will be replaced by automation in transportation, but I think the way that we're using people in transportation will change dramatically. One of the benefits of automation is it allows you to upskill a lot of the people who are working in an industry, and that will definitely be true of transportation as well. Especially in specifically health logistics. If you think about how a lot of transportation and healthcare is happening today, it's often actually medical professionals who are transporting medical products between health facilities and patients. And that's just not a good use of their time. So if you have a nurse who's traveling to do home infusion at a patient's home, it doesn't make sense for that nurse to be spending a third to half her day traveling back and forth picking up supplies. It's much better for her to be spending all of her time practicing at the top of her license and have the supplies meet her at the patient's homes. I think that's just one example of many where you'll find that drones can actually help people be way more productive and will just take the burden of some of these low value added tasks.
Yeah, I don't see drones replacing humans. I think drones further extend the reach of the supply chain, provide access and service in ways that we couldn't envision in the past. I'll give you a small example. I've got family in rural Iowa in the US, okay, farmlands. And if you look at the hospitals there, sometimes when they need some very highly specialized medical device, a company like Medtronic or some of the other med device companies, they will ship within as quickly as possible using FedEx or UPS. It'll come to the airport, one of the nearby airports. They'll then rent a limo service, like a taxi or a car service, to then pick it up at the airport and deliver it to the hospital. That could get replaced by a drone going from the distribution facility that Medtronic has to that hospital in rural Iowa, right? So in that context, yes, it could potentially replace. But in general, I think it's really about increasing the access and providing services that just are lacking today and improving people's quality of life.
It all sounds wonderful, but how many people here feel comfortable with drones flying over their heads? Can you raise your hand? Oh, this is a fast adoption group. But as we think about this 3D transportation network, how do we make sure to set standards internationally when we think about drones flying over our heads?
Yeah, I think that'll come with adoption, right? When the Wright brothers created the first manned flight, the FAA did not exist, right? And now we have all kinds of detailed regulation in place. So I don't think this will be any different. I think we as humans will figure out how to organize and put the right checks and balances as adoption increases. Ultimately, this is not about making drones a nuisance. It's really about leveraging drones in ways that improves lives. That's the way I look at it, as opposed to becoming an irritant and really zipping past everyone while you're trying to go about your daily life.
Yeah, but I think safety and community acceptance are also really important issues. So if drones are loud, if they are a nuisance, if they're keeping people up at night, that's a problem that would probably prevent their rollout. So one of the things that Zipline thinks a lot about is community engagement. How can we design a solution to be as unobtrusive as possible? How do we help educate people on the benefit of the drone service that's serving their community? And I think one of the benefits we have is that while regulation will always lag innovation, we're not starting from zero. There's a really strong base of civil aviation regulation and healthcare regulation that we can start from and then focus on modifying the pieces that don't make sense for this new automated mode of transport. And I think one of the really exciting things is that there are lots of resources out there that can help governments and regulators who are interested in doing that. The World Economic Forum has done a great job of starting to put together some of those resources into toolkits for regulators. And there are also countries that are leading the way and sort of can serve as models for success on integrating this technology into their airspace.
I don't want to take up all the time, so I want to open up the floor for questions. So if anyone has questions, please keep them brief. Yeah. Mike, please, in the front. Try to speak up.
My name is Gaurav, founder of a tech company called Zipline. The question for Will is, you've got, as a tech entrepreneur who's raised capital, you think about growing your business. What are the tensions between just staying in healthcare versus pursuing some of the other potential applications?
So just to repeat the question. As a tech entrepreneur who's raised capital and now has the duty to grow your business, you're achieving an amazing mission with what you've told us. What are the pressures as new applications, e-commerce or more commercial applications outside of healthcare? How do you balance staying mission-driven versus building a big business with all the opportunities that are going to come up with more adoption?
So as a mission-driven company, everything we do starts with our mission to provide instant access to every human on Earth with vital medical products that they may need. And one of the benefits we have is that we have a set of investors who are also bought into that mission. And so when they invested, they understood that we were a social enterprise, and they understood that that was the business that we were building. But I also think that our incentives are fairly well aligned with investors, because the only way that that mission is going to be sustainable in the long run is if we can find a way to make it profitable. And in the long run, I definitely expect that we will find a way to make that profitable. And I also expect that we'll deliver some products that are not healthcare related. Zipline is an automated logistics company, and I think one of the best ways that we can serve our mission is actually by finding other additional profitable services that can help cross-subsidize the health logistics services we provide to low-income countries, for instance.
I have a...
Can we turn on the mic, please? 能不能开了那个麦克风? It's on.
Hello? Yeah. Okay. Small question for Mr. Zhang. Antwork is a great drone transportation, and I know that for A round, you have already four times investments from various reputable, very famous investors. So what are the key points of your business essence or financial growth figures that convince them?
Fortunately, we are the same investor. They believe.
Where do you guys all find these investors?
They find us maybe.
They're out there.
All here, right?
Yeah, we have the same mission. We are different team. You are in US, we are in China, and we have the same mission. One data is that we are the first can make it commercially in the outdoor delivery in China. That is the first one, first application we cooperate with China Post. At that time, it's 2 years ago. So I think maybe in the later, not our money, not based on all from the investment. Also, we can build a business model. As I just said, that's a long distance, instant delivery. We check the data of the Nowadays, the requirements in China city, the requirements now is already can satisfy our business model. Maybe in 1 year later, we'll get the profit in the operation in a city area.
Sorry, we always have more good questions than time, so I have to cut it. But thank you so much for sharing. I think when we think about the fast technological innovation that we have, technology is something that's neutral, but how do we guide that for good? And how do we use technology to really change people's lives and improve people's lives and make their lives more convenient? I think that's a big question for everyone to think about, from where you stand, what little things you can do to help contribute to that. So thank you very much for participating, and thank you, and round of applause again for our panelists.